Hi everyone, so today I'll be bringing you through a time-lapse Frankening session. This was about an hour's worth of Frankening and I had so much fun. So I basically took out all of my graveyard eyeshadows. My main goal for this session was to actually Franken everything in that palette in the bottom with the purple packaging. But first I started out with kind of a colorful pan. I did a kind of split pan method there, and I used dry pressing method this time, which is basically where I just pushed in the eyeshadows into the pan dry and kind of mounted it up as much as I could, and then would press it down with something that was a similar shape and size, and that seemed to work really well. They tend to be a little bit more fragile, it seems like, but I often just keep my eyeshadows in one place. I'm not moving around with them a lot, so I try to press them down pretty hard and try to be gentle with them. So here I'm making, I believe, a split pan. I didn't have quite enough for a full one there, so I pushed in a different eyeshadow. And I think shimmers do really well with split pans. The matte shadows that I end up working on later, I don't think I ended up doing that. Next up, I really wanted to start lightening some eyeshadows, so I used kind of a more white eyeshadow, try to go ahead and get the shade I wanted. And as you can see there, this one's still one of the more shimmery ones, and it pressed down really nicely. As you can see, I have a little bit of leftover eyeshadow in my little bowl every time, so I feel like I'm really mixing a lot of different shades together at some point. These shades started to turn out darker and darker, so I added in some translucent powder to try to make it less pigmented. And I think that worked out pretty well. Of course, it looks kind of a weird gray color, but when I swatched it out, it really doesn't look like that too much. That's just the translucent powder that's happening there. And I ended up also using the back of a lipstick tube to really use that kind of as a press for the pressing portion of Frankening these eyeshadows. Sometimes I wouldn't actually mix my eyeshadows all that well. They'd kind of just be all mushed in there, and I think for me that's totally fine. I end up just kind of swirling my brush all over my pans anyways, and plus it gives it a little bit of a speckled look or like a mixed look, which I kind of enjoy actually, so I'm not really afraid of that. And as you can see here, I'm definitely mixing in some much lighter pigments in there to try to get it to work and get the shade that I want ultimately. Some of these ended up still a little bit darker than I was hoping for, but I think overall I'm pretty happy with the changes that I made and how I do feel like I'm able to use some of these very, very dark shades in a little bit of a better way. As you can see, there's a lot of powder that I pour into each and every pan, and I was constantly surprised by like, wow, I can actually fit a lot of powder in here. And ultimately down the road, that's also all the powder that I have to use up on my eyes. And that is a little bit daunting, I think, especially as I was making so many eyeshadows. And I think I just need to plan ahead and make sure that I can actually get through all these. There, I actually just mixed in powder sunscreen. That's pretty much just zinc oxide with some other mixers. And I often don't use just pure powder sunscreen, so I use that also as a way to lighten my eyeshadows and kind of dilute them, if you will, a little bit. And they actually press down okay. We'll kind of see the longevity of it. There I'm using a larger pan, and as you can see, one of the blushes just fell out, and that blush actually made with alcohol and had pressed in there with alcohol, and it seemed to have actually dried it out too much. So here I'm trying to kind of add a few things just to lighten it because the shade was a little too red for me, so I added in some white and some other things, and actually I'm just trying to dry press it in there. It was a little clumsy, if you will, but eventually I got there. Took a few tries. I also learned through this process that once you dry press it one time, anything else that you try to press over it tends to fall back out. So I would try to fit as much as you can in there the first time rather than doing them in sections, because that really doesn't work. So here I'm pressing my last few shades, the more darker ones, and I was really trying to be a little bit more creative, but since I was towards the end of my Frankening session, I was getting kind of tired. So I was a little bit lazy, and these ended up kind of the same shade there. But overall, I'm really happy with how this Frankening session turned out, and really glad that I think I'll be able to use these shades in the next year, and I plan to be slowly working through them. Some of these might end up getting Frankened again, and I think that's totally fine for me. I would rather be able to look at eyeshadows that I am looking forward to using rather than having them hidden away in another palette. So here I'm just putting them all back into my Freedom palettes. These are the MAC Freedom palettes. Really enjoy them. They're really versatile, and I'm looking forward to using these up in my Pan Those palettes next year. Thanks for watching.